two fundamental components to thermodynamics when you're heating something up. If you have a pot of water and you have a candle underneath it, it might take an hour to heat it up to bring it to a boil. Then it stabilizes at that temperature. So that's what we call steady state. What's important is that if you take a blowtorch from the mine down the road, okay, that they use to melt steel, and put it underneath the pot, that rise in temperature is going to happen maybe within a couple of seconds, and the water will come to its steady state, or maybe it'll go on and just vaporize it. So I want you to keep that in mind as we walk through this section. In the lab, when we're running that particular bright ball, so Ben's there, he's capturing his video, we're capturing video on our screens and our computers. Hydrogen flowing.
Yes.
Okay.
Doing it. That's right. Okay, it's okay.
Lightning bolts flashing. Okay, so let's not now. We got to bring the pressure down and restabilize. So bring the pressure down, bring your power down. Your voltage back. Bring your power back. Bring it back. Bring it back to, let's say, maybe 5. Okay?
Yes.
The anode, you heard me saying that, bring it back, bring the power back, bring it back, please, bring it back. The reason is because we're reaching the reactor maximum temperature, and we weren't able to stop it. Dr. Lowell Morgan, myself, and a guy by the name of Tommy Mello, who actually works in development of computational fluid dynamics code. And that code is used by NASA and Lockheed and others, and all kinds of corporations to do thermodynamic analysis, in other words, rocket engines, cooling systems, and the transfer of heat and energy. It's very complex, very expensive, but it's very powerful software, and that's what we use today. So we can predict very accurately, if we understand that the factors involved, how something should perform. And that's how they design your car engines, so they don't overheat anymore. Our calculations showed that we needed, in order for us to reach maximum reactor temperature, our power supply had to be at 100% power output. So just imagine 100% means that you've got a blowtorch underneath the pot. The max temperature of the chamber should be about 113 degrees Celsius. The other numbers, we just kind of tested at different levels of what kind of temperatures that the chamber should respond to. The 7% we're going to get into in a few seconds is actually where the power was set when you see that anode and where we're actually creating the transmutation of elements. This is a model, some of you may have seen it from 2016 when we did the analysis. When it's cooled with the cooling systems at full power, shouldn't reach much higher than about 110, 113 degrees. But at full power, cooling system on, steady state, 100, 113 degrees. When we did our calculations, each of us did them separately, we were all within 50 degrees of each other. Without cooling, the chamber would heat up to 500 degrees Celsius. So that 100 degrees, 110, actually represents 500 degrees Celsius without cooling. So when I say 50 degrees, you might say, well, that's 50%, but it's actually 50 degrees of the 500. And then we put cooling on it, and it should come to this. So for 3 years, we've been running the experiment, and Sapphire has responded predictably until now. We have, on our SCADA system, you'll see here on the screen at the bottom is 113 degrees. We have thermocouples. We have 12 thermocouples all around the chamber measuring to make sure that it's stable, and we can monitor these things because it's important. So what this graph is a video. The red line represents the infrared camera. That's the one we're looking at the anode to tell what its temperature is, so it's not compromised thermally or melt. The blue one is called a bolometer. It measures, you might say, a relative energy measurement of what's coming off the anode. It's not a total measurement of energy as such of what Sapphire is putting out. The gold line is actually the thermocouple. So this is a day's worth of experiment sped up a couple of thousand times. This is what our day looks like. We work very quickly, as you can see. Isn't that interesting? Right at the peak. So it's climbing and falling. We're changing chemistry, you might say the gas composition, power settings, and we're monitoring the thermal temperature of the anode and the chamber. Yes, that is the anode melting. We didn't know it at the time because it was happening so slowly. But when we realized what was happening, we had to shut Sapphire down. It just got too hot. What I want you to observe here is the angle of that yellow line, and that is real-time rise in temperature over time. This is the real time. And the rise in temperature over time is identical to what we calculated at 100% max power, but we're only at 7%. The fall here represents after we shut it down, as you saw in the video. We couldn't control at that point in time, so we started dialing the power back. And we were only at 7%. For me, doing mechanical engineering and what I do, everybody gets excited. Well, it's all this heat. For me, it's like, can we run the reactor? Now, this next picture is not a black and white. This next picture shows you when we change the composition of the catalyst, it actually takes heat out of the system to a point where the anode, if you can see it here, doesn't even register, and that's at max power. Dial's turned up to 11, okay? And that's what we get. So we can cool it down. So we can introduce certain compositions and things and take energy out of the system. 100% max power gives you 100% maximum thermal stable state energy or heat in the chamber. 7% gave us 100% plus because we couldn't track when it was going to stop. I don't like to boast about our errors, so our calculations were only off by 93%. I'm 62, and I'm telling you the truth. I've never been off 93% in any of the engineering I've ever done in the past, and that's a big number. It's not just me. It was Lowell, it was Tommy. Chambers shouldn't be doing this.